Hello, hello. It's Jamie Allen Bishop with Soul Heart Entertainment here for ToesDay. Yay! So if you saw my quick little video yesterday, I started preparing for this. I mean, I'm always preparing for this. I love toe reading. But yesterday I watched Footloose. Oh my gosh, that movie, it just cracks me up. But you know, there's a lot going on in that movie that's very pertinent to today's challenges out there. So, what do we want to talk about today? In the Soul Heart Entertainment Karmic Soul Reset program, we are talking about faith and trust. Still, faith and trust. Faith and trust. July is all about faith and trust. And for me, the way that is showing up is in, gosh, all the beauty that I see around me and all the experiences that I'm having, both good and bad, or what, you know, I could perceive as bad. But the reality is that everything is good. It is just a matter of how we take those lessons that we're learning in life and see if they're serving us, or, you know, learn, I guess, from the experience if it's a quote unquote bad experience. So yeah, so thank you for joining. So one of the things in toe reading that I don't often talk about has to do with the archetypes. There are archetypes that are associated with the various toes. So, and really it's more about how your toes are showing up. And so we find that if your toes show up a certain way, you kind of fit into this category, if you will, of persona and personality. Hi, Katie. Thanks for joining. So glad you're here. So I have 12 archetypes that I have a tendency to refer to when it comes to the toe reading. And when we're talking about, okay, so let me just start with, there are so many archetypes out there. There's too many to discuss in one episode, if you will. I do these for at about 30 minutes. If for some reason there's a whole bunch of questions, I definitely am willing to stay a little bit longer. But I do have it on my calendar for 30 minutes, these ToesDay experiences. So in that 30 minutes, what we can talk about are the archetypes that show up as categories, specifically in relation to toe reading. Thank you for the hearts, by the way. So with the archetypes, we're talking about the difference between kind of there's families of archetypes, if you will. Archetypes that, how do I explain it? It's just categories. It's just families of them. So the first family has 4 archetypes in it. And the 4 archetypes are the innocent, the regular guy or gal, otherwise known as the orphan, the warrior or hero, and the caregiver or the altruistic personality. We'll come back to how those archetypes show up in the toes. The second category of archetypes are for the transformation and change. That first grouping was family, mostly family. Family oriented, I guess, would be the best way to say it. Hopefully you can hear me. Can you hear me okay? So the second 4 are about transformation and change. And those are the explorer, seeker, or wanderer. That's all in the same category. The outlaw or destroyer, as the case may be. The lover, and the creator. Okay, so those are that's the second set of archetypes, and they're the transformation or change archetypes. The last set of archetypes, the last 4, are archetypes having to do with the royal court is what we call them. So the royal court 4 archetypes are the ruler, the magician, the sage, and the jester. Okay, so even as I say the names of these archetypes, I'm sure that people's names that you know are popping up in your head of who fits into these categories. So, you know, you might know somebody who is, you know, has that hero complex, that hero, they want to help everybody, they want to make everybody, you know, kind of conform, if you will, to this idea of what they view as the perfect world or the perfect scenario. You probably can think of many caregivers. You probably can think of several people that are of the innocent family. There's lots of orphans out there, kind of the down-to-earth people who may or may not feel comfortable in their birth family, but they know that they're kind of all about family, if you will. So they then create their own through friends. That second set, you can, I mean, I can't even begin to tell you how many seekers I know, because I happen to be one of them. So I, of course, very much attract seekers to me. There's also the outlaw destroyers in the world, the lovers, and the creators. So when we're talking about archetypes, okay, and you know, I mean, we all know rulers. We all know all of the rulers, the magicians, the sages, the jesters, and the rulers, the people who kind of take control of any situation. The beauty of categorizing in the archetype is that we can, you know, there's polarity to each of those archetypes. So for example, in the ruler, there's the ruler that thinks of the good for all, and there's the ruler that thinks of the good for themselves, right? Neither of them are bad. Neither of them are incorrect. Neither of them are doing it wrong, as it were. It's just different ways of looking at things. It's different ways of showing up in the world. And this new age that we've come into, and I feel like 2020, so numerologically speaking, 2020 is a 4. Okay, that's the 2 plus 0 plus 2 plus 0 is the number 4. And 4 is all about the foundation. It's, you know, I think of the 4 pillars of where we all stand in life and how that foundation shows up for us when we're talking about our life in general. Sometimes that foundation is really solid. Sometimes it feels like sand. Sometimes it's rocky as can be and you can't kind of get your footing going on. So I feel like foundation is a really, really important thing that's happening in this year. And the reason why everything's, of course, you guys, this is my opinion, but to me, the reason why everything's kind of up in the air and it's so dramatic and there's so much, you know, unbalance, if that's the right word, or whatever word I'm looking for. The reason it feels so unstable, that's a good word for it, is that we're creating a new foundation. This old foundation that has worked really, really well for our country, and really countries across the globe, because it's, you know, 2020 hasn't been just rocky for the United States. It's been rocky for everybody on the face of this earth. I've been meeting with a wonderful, wonderful self-love support group online with folks from England and Scotland and really all over. And it's been really wonderful for me because I get to experience a little bit about the individual stories of what's going on in the world. And it's literally in the world. It's not just here in America. It's not just in my circle of influence. So it feels really good to be involved with that group. So thank you very much to Claire Bennett, who has been hosting that group for us. But anyway, so to me, 2020 is all about creating a more stable foundation to go forward from. And the past foundation hasn't been working. It worked for a long time. And now we've grown out of it. We've grown out of that foundation, and now we're laying, and actually the first 20 years of this century, we laid a new foundation, and now we're kind of trying to establish where the boundaries are for this experience, for this next 100 years of our lives, or really, we only have 80 left, right? Before it'll all start over again, and all this drama and chaos will happen again. But anyway, so yeah, so if you can relate to any, I know that it looks like there's a few people that are coming on and off, and so I don't know if there's some challenges with the internet or technology in general. Welcome to 2020. So if that is the case, if you do get on and you can type in some sort of question or suggestion of what to talk about, I would welcome the direction. But in the meantime, until I do have questions from the audience, as it were, and if, by the way, you jump on later and are watching this not live, please type in the hashtag replay so that I know that you saw it after the fact. And feel free to type in questions even then, because I will address those, if not in the comments, I will address them the next time that I have a Facebook Live having to do with the toes and or feet. So the way that archetypes fit into the toes and feet scenario, and specifically how they fit into the faith and trust, which is the left baby toe for most people. Every once in a while there's like 0.001% that it's kind of flip-flopped for, so I don't generally talk about the flip-flopping, but just so you know, on the rare occasion it could be flip-flopped. But for the average person, or for most people, it will show up as the left foot is our internal self and the right foot is our external self, where the left foot will, the baby toe, has to do with our faith and trust, and you know, how heart-centered we are, how much we're coming from a place of complete and utter knowing that whatever it is that we desire, wherever we're launching our rockets from, right? That's the verbiage that Abraham Hicks uses, which I just love that. I love that information out there. But those rockets of desire that are launched into our vortex have to do completely with that faith and trust toe. So as we do any kind of meditations, or as we're grounding ourselves in the earthly presence that we're experiencing right now, one of the things that I welcome you to do is when you're doing any kind of grounding meditation, you really spread those toes and really focus on that faith and trust and the prosperity and abundance toes. So I know my video is backwards, but this is my right hand, this is my left hand. So on my left foot, I'm pretending my hands are my feet. Oh my. So the left toe ends up showing up as your baby toe, your faith and trust toe, versus your prosperity and abundance toe. So when we're meditating, we want to really, really spread our toes as far apart as we can to really allow the earth to kind of soak up into our experience, and to allow, you know, if you can have a little bit of suspension of disbelief in the idea that as our toes open, we are more open to new information and new experiences and new just newness in general, and that we're open to it. We have a tendency to have fairly closed toes. And while closed toes keep us, they show us how we keep ourselves safe, the more open the toes are, A, the more organized you are, and B, the more open you are to receiving information from outside sources. So definitely consider opening your toes up. And the way that looks like in a faith and trust person, really the open toes lead me to believe that that's somebody who falls into the category of the transformation and change category, which I'm not even going to show you these because they're backwards. The words are backwards for you guys. But the transformation and change archetypes are those who express they're the ones that we call upon for stability during these difficult times of change and adjustment. So there's a lot of amazing people out there to lead in the explorer, seeker, wanderer category, in the outlaw, destroyer category, in the lover category, and in the creator category. So let me just read these to you so that you can hear a little bit about these. And this all shows up in your left faith and trust toe, because if your faith and trust toe is, holding back, you're going to want to consider opening it up, and literally you would massage your toe into a space of being more straight and more in alignment with being open. Whereas when toes are pulled back like that, it has a tendency to close us off from experiencing new things, because we're I think of it as we're in this state of protection over ourselves, right? We're kind of in this state of protection. And so we want to open up, and in order to open up, we have to have those nice flat toes coming forward. So when we work our toes to make them kind of show up the way that we're hoping to be open, right? Here's what the explorer, the seeker, or the wanderer would be like, okay? The explorer, seeker, or wanderer leaves to know, to discover, and leaves, I think that should say lives. They live to know, discover, and explore the unknown. The inner rugged individual braves loneliness and isolation to seek out new paths. Often oppositional, this iconic archetype helps us discover our uniqueness, our perspectives, and our callings. So if you are somebody who's trying to forge paths or trying to help people find their own paths, you are probably an explorer, seeker, or wanderer. If you're exploring in general, you are probably an explorer, seeker, or wanderer, right? One of my favorite quotes is, "Not all who wander are lost," right? That's a fantastic quote. It suits me very well. The other archetype is the outlaw or destroyer. This archetype embodies repressed rage about the structures that no longer serve us in society. So if you're seeing people online voice their opinions really strongly, they're likely to be our outlaws and destroyers. And we need them. We need those people in the world in order to forge the path of change. Change is not easy. We humans thrive on the status quo and keeping ourselves safe, and change is super scary. So we need those outliers or destroyers who go against the grain, who don't believe everything they hear, who experience things from a state of wanting things to change, and usually it's for the better. And so those are fantastic people in the world. They although this archetype can be ruthless, it does weed the garden in ways that allow for new growth. Okay, so that's just super, super important archetype. The lover archetype is also something you'll see a lot of. You'll see people getting online and wanting to voice why can't we all get along? Why is this so challenging? Why can't people see the love in every situation? That kind of thing. The lover archetype governs all kinds of love, from parental love to friendship to spiritual love. But we know it best in the romantic sense. Although it can bring all sorts of heartache and drama, it helps us experience pleasure, achieve intimacy, make commitments, and follow our bliss. So, those people, some of those buzzwords are super key to knowing who you're dealing with. And what's interesting about archetypes is when we know who we're dealing with, it's so much easier to communicate with them. It's so much easier to know what platform they come from, right? And there's umpteen million books written on the psychology of people in general. And archetypes definitely make a difference for me in helping to know who it is that I'm talking to and therefore how to get through to them. What's important to you? It's the number one question, because once you know what's important to somebody, you know how to communicate with them. You know what ground they stand on and what you can relate to. Usually, we have a tendency to get each other, even when we don't know we get each other, if that makes sense. Okay, so the last archetype in this category of transformation and change has to do with the creator. So the creator archetype fosters all imagination and endeavors, from the highest art to the smallest innovation in lifestyle or work. Adverse to stasis, which means just basically they're completely averse to being bored. Hello, my daughter. It can cause us to overload our lives with constant new projects. Yet, if properly channeled, it helps us express ourselves in beautiful ways. So that's, all of those, well, really every single archetype will show up in the baby toes on some level or another. But I have a tendency to really, really like the faith and trust toe, because when you're talking about faith and trust, take a look at your baby toenail on your left foot. The toenails are the windows to the soul. And by windows to the soul, I mean, we say that our eyes are the windows to the soul, right? So if you think about the toenails or nails in general being the eyes to our thoughts, feelings, and emotions. So the doorway, if you will, to our belief system. And so when they show up, when our toenails show up as hardened or as split or with ridges, either horizontally or vertically, or if we have decoloration of our nails, if we have hardened calcium deposits in the nail itself, if we have ingrown nails on the outside, or tough cuticles, or anything. And so there's all kinds of ways that our toenails show up, and each one of those means something in toe reading. For example, let me just read a couple of things from the glossary for you. So if we have hardened skin around the toenails, we are talking about, let's see, okay, so hardened skin. So this might mean that you're looking through, or whoever it is looking through the world through rose-colored glasses, meaning that they're refusing to see things that are really there, that they're refusing to see things that are pretty obvious to those around them, because they don't want to acknowledge the pain or suffering, perhaps, of others. But what that does is it's preventing the viewing of inner truths. Okay, so it's kind of protecting. It's most of the ways that our toes show up challenging to us, are about protecting us from change, from pain, from fear. They're keeping us safe, right? These beliefs that go on in our head show up physically in our body. I mean, that's just a given to me. That's just a no-brainer. That absolutely, without a doubt, happens to everyone all the time. The way that we think and believe is the way that things show up in our body. And through years and years and years of looking at feet and toes, it's really obvious how some of these things show up in the toes. So, for example, ingrown nails. I get a lot of questions about ingrown nails. So under the glossary of toe observations, ingrown nails refer to profound need to protect or hide. It often leads to not feeling heard in the world and not listening to the higher self. So if you are somebody who suffers from ingrown nails, the very first thing that I would suggest doing is start listening to your intuition. If your intuition tells you to go right, even though every day for the last 10 years you've gone left, you have to start listening to that intuition. There's a reason. There's something in the experience when you turn right that you're going to come across that it may not make sense to you. The intuition never makes sense, to be honest with you, or very rarely. But so it's just this fantastic thing that we have to have faith and trust in it, right? So there's that faith and trust showing up again. So another thing that I hear a lot about, or that I get a lot of questions about, are when nails are broken. Okay, so when I think of broken nails as like when they look jaggedy on the edge. Okay, so when a nail looks jaggedy on the edge, we're talking about feeling split or torn between two or more things. It sometimes indicates a breaking away from old ideas, or maybe the desire to do that. So depending on which toe it shows up on, that would be the starting point of where you delve in deeper to find out what it is that is in need of being changed in your life, and or just being acknowledged and seen, if that's the right way to say it. So let's see, I think that pretty much sums it up. So we talked a little bit about archetypes, we talked a little bit about a couple of toe definitions and how that faith and trust toe shows up. Again, one of the best ways to make changes in the way that your toes show up is to pamper them, is to spend a little bit of time caring for your soul, caring for your feet. The best way to do that is to do a little sitz bath for your feet with Epsom salt, 1 part Epsom salt, 1 part baking soda, and a drop or two of your favorite oil, essential oil, and then put it in, I guess about per let's say gallon or 2. So like if I fill up my bathtub, I put in several scoops of the salts, several scoops of the baking soda, and several drops of my favorite oil. And that is the best way to draw out toxins from your body. And then once I'm done soaking in that, I take take my favorite lotion and put a little bit more of the essential oil in the lotion in my palm, and then rub it into my toes. And when I work it into my toes, I'm really pampering. I'm really thinking about the things that I want. And so the best way to get rid of thoughts that no longer serve you is to thank them for showing up, because now you know what you don't want, and focus on what you do want. And that, for me, it's that wonderful, exciting thing about being able to fantasize about what it looks like. What is it that you want? How does it look? It's so exciting to dream about anything that you want that you don't already have, right? So as you're pampering your toes, as you're pampering your feet, that's one of the best ways to transform your feet almost overnight. All right? So thank you so much for being here today. If you were not able to make the live, please let me know that you showed up for the replay. And if you have any questions about toes or feet, definitely let me know, either by private message or in the comments below. And feel free to share the video if you have. And I hope you guys have a great evening, and I look forward to seeing you next week for ToesDay. In the meantime, I will be popping on randomly throughout the week just to touch base and give you a little tidbit further. So have a great evening, and thanks for being here. Bye for now. Jamie with Soul Heart Entertainment.